Your race matters. In dating, at least. A study by the University of Chicago done in 2006 looked at multiple different traits of men, including height, facial attractiveness, and ethnicity, and attempted to give dollar values to each of these traits. So if you're 5 feet tall, you need $317,000 in additional income to be the equivalent of someone who's 5'11 and a half. I think it's hard to visualize these income amounts, though, and so for the sake of this video, we're going to be looking at height and ethnicity. So if you're an Asian man in the eyes of a white woman, the largest subtraction in the study, we can see that's the equivalent of being about 5'3", which is 8.5 inches shorter than the baseline 5'11 and a half. And if we look at a lighter one, we can see that Hispanic men in the eyes of Asian women is considered to be about 5'10", which is, 1.5 inches shorter than the baseline. Now, I'm not going to take any of these exact figures because this study does use a smaller sample size, and I'm going to ignore them. But what we can take away is being an unfavorable ethnicity can be the equivalent of being approximately 2 to 9 inches shorter. So if you're a girl's favorable ethnicity and she likes your race, you're going to appear your regular height of, in this case, 6'3". Whereas if you're her unfavorable ethnicity, in terms of your attractiveness, you're going to appear 5'6". Obviously, you don't actually appear shorter, but in terms of your attractiveness, this is pretty easy to visualize. So what are people's actual preferences? Well, when we look at a study from OkCupid done in 2014, we can see men's online dating preferences tend to be pretty neutral outside of their preferences for black women, with black men being the most neutral. We can see that Asian women tend to do the best outside of their own race, although all women tend to do best with their own race. Now, when we look at women's dating preferences, immediately you'll probably notice women are a lot harsher. Asian women being the harshest in terms of racial preferences. All men tend to do, again, best with their own race, although with white men it's kind of close. White men tend to do just by far the best outside of their own race, with Asian men doing the worst outside of their own race. Now, these percentages you're looking at are match percentage increases and decreases, which probably don't mean much to you because I doubt you've used OkCupid. So what instead we're going to look at is inches. If we use the study I looked at earlier and convert these numbers over to inches, you can see approximately how much attraction is gained or lost based on your ethnicity across national averages. Some of you are probably thinking right now, what about me? I'm multiple. Well, we're going to cover that now. If you're a mixed guy who's a mix of black and white descent, and you meet a girl who's white and has the national average white woman preferences, which are white men are neutral and black men get a -6, then what we're going to do is take the two and add them together, or in this case, subtract, and divide it by 2 to find the average, which in this case would be -3, giving you a score of -3, meaning in her eyes you're losing about 3 inches of attractiveness due to your ethnicity. It's a pretty simple equation. You can do this for all of your ethnicities and every group you encounter, although remember, these are all averages. Just quickly, for those of you who don't think dating apps/sites data counts, 60% of people meet online nowadays, so it's super important how well you do on online dating. And 2, the attraction percentages on that OkCupid study perfectly line up with the most common interracial couples in America. Dating apps certainly are real life, even if they are a little bit of an exaggeration. So how do you use any of this to your advantage? Well, first of all, there's been a decrease in racial preference over the last, ever. And this means interracial relationships are only becoming more common. Despite this, though, every race will tend to do best with their own race, especially Asian men and black men. Not really sure why, but this is what the data seems to bear out. Interracial dating is more common in major cities, and so I recommend if you're struggling because of your ethnicity and you are in a small town, so say you're an Asian man in a town of all white people or black people or really any ethnicity, I would recommend getting to a city where people are going to have less harsh racial preferences and you'll do better. I will keep in mind, not all cities are the same, and some cities will be better than others. So I want you to let your mind go blank for a second and imagine a situation. Imagine you're an Asian man deciding where to go to university, and you have two choices: University of Toronto in Toronto, Canada, and Queen's University in Kingston, Canada. Toronto is 43% white and 35% Asian. Queen's is 82% white and 12% Asian. Well, where do you decide to go, assuming you're looking to have a good dating life? Well, if you chose Queen's, you would be at a serious disadvantage. Why is this? Well, a large majority white population makes women feel a need to whitewash themselves to fit in. That will mean non-white women want to date white men to essentially fit into the culture of the city. As a bonus, you have very few Asian women, which are going to be the group you do the best with. And because non-white women want to date white men, you're probably not getting the same level of bonus as you would in other places. On top of that, white men, who are 82% of the population, are probably going to get a bonus because, again, non-white women want to date white men in cities where it's the majority. And what makes it even worse is that 82% of the population are white women, where even if we use just the national averages, you're still getting minus 8 inches to your attractiveness from 82% of the population. Now, if we take a more multicultural city like Toronto, Asian women will feel less pressure to whitewash themselves to fit in because there's not even a majority. It's such a multicultural city and everyone appreciates their own culture within the city. Asian women will tend to appreciate men of their own culture. As a bonus, there's a large amount of Asian women, approximately 3 times as many per capita as in Kingston, which is going to be your most favorable matchup, even if you just get the national averages, which you may get even more than. Now, the other benefit of a diversity like Toronto is low social stigma around dating people outside of your own ethnicity. This will give, essentially, all races will give less of a debuff to Asian men. So in a more homogenous city, they'll give, say, the national averages of -8 to Asian men from every ethnicity. Whereas in a diverse city, because of reduced racial stereotypes, they've been around more Asian men, and there's less of a culture shock, it's going to fall to only, say, -4. These are all estimates, of course, and I would take everything I say here with a little bit of a grain of salt, but these are, I've found to be generally true. So when choosing to move cities to improve your dating life, I would recommend looking for more of your own ethnicity, as it's just going to be the group you do statistically the best with, and look for cities without a majority ethnicity if it isn't your own ethnicity. So a couple examples. If you're Hispanic and you're choosing between a job in San Antonio and San Francisco, obviously you're going to want to choose San Antonio, as you have 4 times the Hispanic population, which means your race is the majority and the culture will be around fitting into your culture, as well as you just have 4 times the prospects of people you do the best with, meaning you're going to pick San Antonio. If you're Asian and you're choosing between, say you have 2 options for jobs, Seattle or New York, and you look and you see the Asian percentage is the same, approximately, then you're going to look at what the majority is, which the largest group in New York City is white people at only 31%, meaning there's no majority group. So there's no pressure to fit into any specific group. Whereas in Seattle, it's majority white, meaning most Asian women are going to try and date white men just to try and fit into white culture, because that's the culture of the city, and essentially there's a peer pressure to it, right? So this is going to make New York the option you want to go to rather than Seattle. Here's some anecdotal experiences I've had in terms of dating interracially and noticing people around me try and date interracially. And you can kind of ignore all of these if you want, because I don't have any more data, but I've found all of these to be true, so I wouldn't ignore them. The Eurocentric beauty standard does exist. White men are considered conventionally attractive, just across all ethnicities. And the main advantage of this is going to be with girls' social circles. So let's take 2 situations here. 1, you're a Hispanic man and a black woman likes you, right? These are all averages, exceptions exist. This black woman tends to like Latino men. Her friends, on the other hand, are another mix of races who don't necessarily like Latino men. Maybe some do, maybe some don't, but she's going to receive mixed feedback from her friends and not know if she should stick with this guy. Whereas if you're a white man and a black woman is attracted to you, and she goes and talks to your friends, they're all going to think you're attractive because white men tend to do the best across ethnicities, and because of that, she'll think she picked well, right? All of her friends like you, so you must be attractive, right? I do think this has the largest advantage in high school, though, where a girl is still dependent on her parents. And so if you're trying to date outside of your race in high school, it's going to be significantly easier if you're a white man, because she knows that her parents are probably going to think you're attractive because you're white. And the opinion of her parents is obviously the most important opinion in her life at that point, as she's completely dependent on them. Something to keep in mind, though, is I think EBS is largely mitigated if you're highly attractive. If you're very, very attractive, everyone can tell you're attractive, and it doesn't really make a difference. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Racial stereotypes do exist. Certain groups are attributed certain qualities on average, and this will help them in short-term or long-term dating depending on the group. But the vice versa will also exist, which will tend to hurt certain groups in terms of short-term dating and hurt certain groups in terms of long-term dating. I don't have any evidence for this, but I've found this to be true, and I'm sure most of you have too. Another thing is expectations will be given to you based on your race. So certain women will like, say, black men who aren't, like certain women who aren't black will like black men, but they'll like a specific kind. They want the tall, tatted up black guys rather than, the clean cut. And so even though she likes black men, she likes that kind of black man. If you don't fit that sexual archetype, she's probably not going to like you, even if she likes your ethnicity. Look for women who dress to match your ethnic style. So if I see a woman wearing this outfit, no matter what her ethnicity is, I assume she likes white guys, because she's dressing to try and fit into white culture, and she likely wants to be a part of that culture, which includes dating a white man. Whereas if I see a woman who looks like this, even though she's white and the national averages would say she likes white men, she probably likes black guys. There's no evidence for this or way to back it up, but it's just likely true. And if you want the best chances, I would look to people's style to essentially have a better guess at if she's going to like you or not. Lastly, I want to point out again, these are all averages. Obviously, exceptions exist. Some Asian guys will like black girls, and some black girls will like Asian guys, and so on and so forth. Although I think these exceptions become more common if you're tall, jacked, and or handsome. I think you'll find a lot of women saying, I'm usually not into guys like you, or something like that if you're very handsome. But it is worth keeping in mind. I hope you guys found this valuable or interesting. If you did, just let me know down below. I try to respond to as many comments as I can. And thanks for watching.